Welcome, Bronco Nation, to my game review for Boise State versus Hawaii. Wow, that was not the game that I think probably any of us predicted. Actually, someone did get really close in the score prediction. We'll talk about that here in a second with that shout out. But I want to talk about, before we get into reviewing this game, going through the offense, the defense, the special teams, and also my three keys to the game, looking how Boise State performed against all of those and grading each of those units. So before we get any further into that, I want to talk about this win because I think the first most important thing to remember is that this was a win because there was a moment there at halftime, in the third quarter, even pushing into the fourth quarter, when it was not sure that this was going to be a win. I mean, there was a point there when Boise State hadn't scored on their first drive. Hawaii was driving on their first drive of the game. And that it had that sinking feeling, that Avalos era sinking feeling that the season might be coming to an end here, because let's get this very clear. A loss to Hawaii at this point would probably end the season for Boise State. A loss to Hawaii in the islands against not a good Hawaii team, not a good group of five or Mountain West team with the challengers and Army and Navy and some other teams coming up behind. Boise State needs to go undefeated from here on out. Theoretically, you could see a loss somewhere on their schedule that they might be able to overcome. But Hawaii's not that team. They needed to win this game. Ashton Genty's Heisman hopes. He needs to go undefeated throughout the rest of the season and get to the CFP. And all of that was in the balance for not just a moment, but for a good long moment that I'm sure is causing a lot of fans to not necessarily reflect super positively to this win, because we don't like that feeling. We don't like that feeling of the season basically almost being over for us right at the halfway and the point of the year. I mean, that's not even necessarily an Avalos era thing. That's kind of a Harsin era thing. You start off strong, all this hype, all this attention, and Boise State's going to be that team again. They're back. And then they fall off the wagon there on that, at that catch, that a game that they don't see coming gets them. And even though they finish strong the rest of the year, that one game throws them for a loop. And so this is a feeling that Boise State fans have been dealing with for a long time. And so none of us like having that feeling. But that didn't happen. Boise State won. And more importantly, they won in a way that won't raise too many eyebrows, because let's be very, very clear about something here. 90% of the national media did not stay up until 1 a.m. Mountain Time. They did not stay up until 3 a.m. East Coast time watching Boise State versus Hawaii. They're going to wake up tomorrow morning. They're going to check their phones. They're going to look at the box score and go, oh, okay. A little closer than we thought it might be, but Boise State maybe moves up one spot in the rankings when the AP poll, which doesn't really matter. But later on, when their record is being reviewed by the CFP, 28-7 is enough of a win. It's not, 2-score, 1-score game. It's enough of a win to kind of gloss over and move on. This is not going to be a sticking point for them later on. So first off, let's get this very clear that it was a win, and it was a good enough win. It wasn't a statement win. This isn't going to propel Boise State up the AP poll. This isn't going to launch them into the top 15, probably. Not a lot of teams lost like they needed to anyway. So Boise State maybe move up like 1 or 2 spots, probably just 1 to like 16th is my guess. But it's enough of a win to not besmirch the record. The third point here is that this was a gutsy win. I'm not going to say that it was a good win, because this is not the result you'd want versus Hawaii, but it was a gutsy win. And because it was a gutsy win, the result is going to be good for Boise. You need those gutsy wins. You need those close games where you realize that any one of you can beat you. And I think Boise State realizes that. But more than that, you're not indefeatable. You are not completely untouchable. You have got to clean up certain elements of your game if you want to continue to advance. It's a refocusing tool, but it also, more than that, it shows that you as a team, when you face adversity, can rally around. Everybody loves to win. Everybody loves success. Success makes you feel good, but it doesn't grow you. It doesn't help make you a stronger team for the next matchup. All it does is it helps grow your national name. And when it comes to building a locker room, which is Spencer Danielson, new head coach here, young head coach, and building up this locker room culture, the thing that builds up a locker room more than anything else, that builds up a team and creates a championship program, is adversity. And adversity that you can get out of with a win that doesn't hurt you is the best kind. Think of all those Boise State teams that went to those Fiesta Bowls. 2006, that game versus San Jose State, that was, I mean, obviously super close, coming down to a field goal to win that game right there at the end. Ian Johnson running with busted ribs. He has got a punctured left lung, half collapsed left lung, and he's still, or right lung, whichever one it was, and he's still running down the field. You know, that wasn't this game, but that game for Boise State helped create and build a roster that was going to push through the rest of the season. 2009, the game versus Nevada comes to mind on the blue. That game took everything, and Dan Paul had to go out there and have 3 touchdowns to give Boise State the win in that one. That was a close game. That was a touchdown game. And then to 2014, remember that game versus San Diego State, the blackout game on the blue? That was a defining moment for the program. That was the point when you went, okay, this team is built for getting to getting to the New Year's Six. They can fight through adversity. Now, Boise State, all those games were much closer than this one was, but this kind of felt like that. That was that moment. Most of the season so far, Boise State's had their way, at least in one phase of the program. Obviously, Georgia Southern was a close game, but it was an offensive shootout. Boise State did whatever they wanted offensively and did enough on defense to win that game. Oregon, Boise State won that game, except their special teams gave it up. And obviously, Portland State, Washington State, Utah State steamrolled through them. Boise State looking invincible. Now, Hawaii comes up, and Boise State shows a little bit of chink in their armor, but at the same time, they show that they can overcome poor starts, overcome poor individual performances at time to rally together as a team and come up with the big stop defensively to push through the adversity on offense and to finally complete the drives and get the touchdowns. 3 fourth down conversions. That's adversity right there. Your offense is not doing what it's supposed to if you are being forced to convert fourth downs, and Boise State converted every single one through the passing game, by the way, which we'll talk about here in a second. But this was a good win for the season. This was good for Boise State. I'm not going to say they needed this per se. I don't think they needed a wake-up call or anything like this, but the benefits from this, being able to walk away with a win and being able to walk away with learning points and finding out that you can rally together as a team and overcome a tough circumstance is going to be huge for them in their drive to the CFP. And I also think that it will turn them around after the bye week. Great time to have a bye week, by the way, being able to digest all of this and come back stronger. Turn them around versus UNLV and make them a very, very scary team to face, which we'll talk about in the game preview, which I have some exciting news about that at the end of this video, so wait all the way to the end. So let's get into actually reviewing this matchup itself and the way that it went through. And first off, before I get into that, of course, the score 28-7. Ezekiel Oseki 5514. I think I've actually pronounced the name correctly this time. I'm probably going to find out I'm wrong, but just in case I didn't, EZEKIELLOSEKE 5514. Prediction 35-14. Almost nailed it. I mean, 1 touchdown off for the offense, 1 touchdown off for the defensive score. Really, really close. Closer than anybody else in the comments section. So fantastic job. I've enjoyed our discussions in the comment sections on a lot of my videos as well. So fantastic job on that. So let's move into looking at this offensive performance and looking at some of these key players for Boise State as well and how they perform. So Max Madsen, I want to address that up front. It's not going to be a Max Madsen rant. Don't worry. He did not have a consistently great game today. In fact, at moments he had a really bad game. He had a lot of underthrows on somewhat easy passes, underthrew on a touchdown. That one wasn't easy. He had to escape a tackle, escape a sack, keep going. Probably should have ran it. Would have set up a short 3rd down conversion attempt. Threw, though, on the run, short down, and I guess to Camper, not to Caples, to Camper, and ended up being incompletion. And multiple times throughout the game, low. That touchdown pass to Genty was low. Genty just caught it because he's Genty and ran it in for a touchdown. Some more he had an underthrow on that first drive. That long throw to Camper, that should have been a touchdown, honestly. Camper had 3 or 4 steps. I mean, he had 3+ yards of separation with the defender, and Maddox Madsen, I don't think that was meant to be a back shoulder throw. It turned into that. I think it was just an underthrow. Camper came back for it, made the catch. And so there were some bad moments overall. But gutsy win, gutsy program, gutsy quarterback. This was a gutsy performance for Maddox Madsen. It wasn't a perfect one, and it's one he'll learn from. But 17 out of 25, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns. Took 2 sacks, almost threw an interception. Talk about that in a moment as well. Almost threw an interception, but also completed 3 passes on 4th down when Boise State needed it the most to extend drives to lead to scores, including on the last one, a touchdown pass to Austin Bolt. on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 from about the 45. So no man's land. Hawaii gets the ball back. They don't have a very long field to go. Potential chance to draw this game within a score right there. And Maddox Matson completes a great slant pass to Austin Bolt, who runs it in for a touchdown. Maddox Matson had some really, really good moments in this game as well. Some really, really strong passing. That connection with Camper has just exploded. Again, that he's clearly established himself as the target for Maddox Matson. 7 receptions, 111 yards, 15.9 yard average, long of 32. However, it wasn't a perfect game for Camper either, because Cam Camper dropped a touchdown pass from Maddox Matson. Now, he would have had to stay on his feet, run into the end zone, but he had a step, and Maddox Matson put it in a perfect spot. He may have underthrown him on that first throw. That one was not an underthrow. Cam Camper, if he just kept running, it would have hit him in the chest. He falls, dives, doesn't even fully extend his arms. It hits him right here. He didn't have to dive, and he doesn't make the catch, period. So first off, it should have been a catch and then down at the 15. But more than that, he should have been able to catch it in stride, because that's where Maddox Matson threw the ball and ran it into the touchdown. Also, Caples dropped a touchdown right in his hands. He had to stretch out for it, but it was right in his hands. Dropped a touchdown pass as well. So 2 missed touchdowns. Maddox Matson should have ended this game with 4 touchdowns instead of 2 touchdowns. And Boise State would have won, 42 to 7. Much different, kind of closer result that we were expecting. So while Maddox Matson, not his perfect game, it's also, again, like I've said, this whole season, it's not just Maddox Matson. There's other players around him and play calling and everything else like that at times are also letting him down. This could have been a much better performance overall, and that confidence boost from completing those throws when you start dropping throws from your quarterback, he starts trying to, kind of wiggle that in a little bit better, kind of aim it more at you, and that can cause the ball to get a little bit shorter as well. And so that could have been part of the circumstance as well. Overall, for Maddox Matson, solid performance. It wasn't last week versus Utah State, but also wasn't, the game versus Oregon. This was a really strong performance from Maddox Matson. And what's more than that, even though he had rough moments kind of in the middles of the game, he started the game and finished the game strong. And the passing game for Boise State proved that, once again, it can pick up when the running game stops. Ashton Jeanty, incredible game today. 31 carries, 217 yards, 7-yard average, 1 touchdown, long of 54, 3 receptions for 20 yards, and a touchdown. But Hawaii was doing a decent job at times of bottling Maddox Matson up. If you go and you look at the drive number 3, Ashton Jeanty, negative 4-yard loss. Matt Lauder's screen pass gets Boise State to the first down. Again, that's Caples drops a touchdown that's right in his hands on that drive. But Maddox Matson actually showing that when Hawaii was able to ball up the run, they could go to the air and they could do it with success. Hawaii was daring Maddox Matson to beat them through the air. And while he didn't do it every single time, he did do it quite consistently throughout the game. And Hawaii was then forced to consider that, which allowed Ashton Jeanty to have such a huge second half. First half of Boise State, total yards, 246 yards total, 132 yards passing, 114 yards rushing. Pretty successful game through the air in the first half. Second half, Hawaii really has to account for that passing game. Boise State still put up yards in the second half, ended the game with 217 yards passing, but only had about 80 yards passing in the second half. Second half, rushing-wise for Boise State, though, Ashton Jeanty took over, almost 120-plus yards rushing in the second half. Boise State starts the game with 114 in the first half, ends it with 233. This was a nice offensive performance, 450 yards overall. And again, a big part of that was because Boise State proved that their passing game is indeed a threat. Was it a perfect game overall? No, it wasn't. And, that's not what Boise State needs out of Maddox Matson. But what they saw out of this passing game overall was that when they needed it the most, when the running game was shut down, when the offense was shut down on fourth down, and they needed a completion, Maddox Matson, these wide receivers, this passing game overall was able to get that for them. And I thought this was a really strong game passing-wise overall. Ashton Jeanty, of course, for him, this is probably one of his most impressive games, maybe his most impressive game of the entire season from a tape perspective. Let's just forget about the rushing for a second. He had 3 receptions for 20 yards and a touchdown. And one of those included a pick that Maddox Matson threw that wasn't caught, right in the hands of the defender. Again, bad moment by Maddox Matson. Right in the hands of the defender that's deflected. Ashton Jeanty, heads up play, shows his elite level performance, catches it off of the deflection, off the lateral. It was almost like a hook and lateral from the defender, and gets Boise State close to a first down that they were able then to convert on the next play. And then, obviously the touchdown pass on the reception. He had a couple long routes. He ran a couple long wheel routes as well, so that's good. Just good route running tape. And he had some great blocking, some really, really strong blocking in this game. You go back and rewatch that. He has some next level blocking in this matchup. And then, of course, the rushing yards totals. And what's most impressive overall is that he didn't do that on two 70-yard touchdowns, or a long 60 and a 50-yard touchdown here and there. He wasn't just having his way all over the defense, but what he did consistently is he got them 4 to 6 yards pretty much every time he touched that ball. Yeah, they bottled him up a couple times, had a negative 4-yard loss, had one run for a negative 4 yards, then a couple yards here and there was only 1 or 2. But overall, he got them those 4 to 6 plus yards every single time. Again, the buzzword of the video today, gutsy, right? This was another gutsy performance for Ashton, and he's been getting some criticism because you gotta criticize him somehow because he's a group of 5 back and he's doing some incredible things, and so gotta start chipping away at his case for the Heisman because you can't let a group of 5 player win the Heisman. And so the biggest complaint about Ashton that has been seen so far is that he just runs for too far sometimes, and that's not good. That means he's not that good a running back. Yep. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard this. This is kind of breaking news that some certain people, former football players, which again proves that just because you played football doesn't mean you have any idea what you're talking about. But yeah, the Ashton Genty's not that good a running back because sometimes he runs for 70 yards, and that proves he's just not that good overall. Yeah, I know you have to be kind of a really reaching for something to grab onto because your life raft of Power 5, Power 4 elite status is melting away before the force of Ashton Genty, and so you have to reach onto something. But that's what's being said. Well, Ashton Genty proved that he doesn't need a couple 70-yard touchdowns to put together a 200-plus yard rushing performance. He can go out there in the meat grinder and pick up 4 to 6 plus yards every time. And again, that's NFL scouts. They love to see that because, of course, they want to see the next level explosiveness. But what they want to see more than anything is a running back that every single play can get them consistently 4 to 6 yards rushing and then occasionally break one for a long one. And Ashton Genty put together some solid first-round draft highlight tape from this matchup. So for the Boise State offense overall, some really great individual performances. Cam Camper, like we said, 7-11. Allison Bolt getting again involved. I love how they continue to involve him. He's a touchdown machine. He doesn't catch a ton of passes throughout the game, but when he does touch the ball, like the Dusecki's guy, when he does touch the ball, he's bringing it in for a touchdown. That's what we saw today. 1 reception, 44 yards on that 4th down attempt. Going to kind of put the game out of reach for Hawaii here. Matt Wagner also getting involved. Matt Lauder, the tight ends. Wagner, a 13-yard reception. Lauder, a 16-yard reception, which included a one-handed grab on a 4th down. I didn't say that every 4th down completion by Madsen was perfect. He did have one that was a little bit behind, but the offense did what it needed to. Lauder reached back behind him with one hand. He's just an incredible receiving. Again, he does echo to me some of those Tommy Galata type vibes sometimes, and some of the receptions that he has. Reaches back behind him, one hand pulls in a 4th down catch. I need to have it play for Boise State to keep the drive alive. Prince Strawn also getting involved, 2 receptions for 13 yards overall. And so for Boise State, what I saw in this one, I really liked overall. Again, it wasn't the huge offensive explosive performance that we wanted to see out of Boise State. Couple of drives not ending in touchdowns. Dirk Cutt is going to be really, really ticked about that on him. I'm sure he's going to emphasize that. They're going to run through some extra red zone drills over this additional off week that they have. So 2 drives there, ending in field goals in the red zone. And you make those into touchdowns. Again, instead, add another 8 points onto this matchup overall. And it's a little bit of a better score. 36 there to 7. Boise State could have had some opportunities to build some momentum where they gave Hawaii a chance to build their own momentum defensively by failing to convert there. And again, some of it was, Max Madsen there in that first drive takes a sack. He had 2 sacks in this game. He has had 2 sacks this entire season. He had 2 sacks in this game. I thought he was a little slow on some of his reads. I thought he was underthrowing the ball on some of his throws as well. But again, when Boise State needed to get the completion, when they needed to have it, when they needed to convert or to pick up yards lost from a penalty or from a play in the backfield where the running game isn't getting it done, Boise State was able to do that. So overall, for this Boise State team, really, 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 really strong. I wish that somebody had woken up the announcers for this game because Boise State had some really, really exciting moments. That 54-yard touchdown, that fourth down conversion. I mean, the announcers for this matchup, I don't know what Benadryl they were still trying to get through from. Maybe they'd taken on the flight over there, or maybe they super heavy night drinking the night before. And that's a joke. That is a joke. I'm not saying that they actually were. But I don't know what they happened to them, who spiked their drinks or whatever. But my goodness, that was the most monotone, lackadaisical announcing I have ever seen. The Ashton Jeanty 54-yard run sounded like a golf announcer. It sounded like they were saying that he just, chipped it up onto the green from 30 yards away. I almost expected a slow golf clap as he ran into the end zone. Oh my God, that fourth down conversion. If you weren't watching it with your eyes, if you were studying or something while it was going on, or if you'd looked away for a second, you wouldn't know it was happening, because oh my goodness, did they not react at all? And that was a huge play. The fans in the stands, the teams, they aren't going to be part of this. So it's not like the announcers' inability to announce in this game with any kind of energy at all somehow sucked away the energy of the matchup for Boise State. The fans in the stands, they're not hearing them. The team on the field, they're not hearing them. It doesn't matter. But watching this game, it really kind of added to the feeling of how slow and low scoring this matchup was. Just the announcers themselves, the doldrum, it was like wading through syrup trying to listen to these guys today. So really, really unfortunate that for a player as exciting as Ashton Jeanty, this was the best announcing crew that that CBS Sports could figure out. I did like that they were in person, though. I mean, Fox Sports, FS1 could definitely learn something from that. However, all right, moving on to the defense overall. Offense, oh, I didn't grade it. Offense, B+ performance. I think, again, that's fair. Strong running game from Ashton Jeanty. Again, solid moments in the passing game. 200+ yards passing overall is, again, solid performance, but obviously not the offensive performance we wanted to see. Need to complete those drives, keep those going, and end in touchdowns. So B+ overall performance for the offense. All right, moving on to the defense. A lot of fans are not happy with this defensive performance, and part of that could be the statistics. 279 yards of total offense given up. So Hawaii, 279 yards offense total. And the passing game, I mean, all over the place. Boise State had real trouble at times stopping this Hawaii passing game. 264 yards passing overall. Really, really, really strong performance for Brandon Shager. Again, I mean, that's what the Hawaii offense is. It's a passing offense. However, I think what's most important is 246 yards passing. I'll give you that. But one touchdown. One touchdown against Boise State's Achilles heel. We know the passing game is Boise State's weak spot. We know they're not going to stop them every time. And yet, they did. Not every time. They got one touchdown in, but Boise State gave up yards, but they did not give up scores. We've seen that again. That's kind of been consistent throughout this season, besides the Georgia Southern game. But after that point, Boise State will give up yards in the passing game, but they won't give up scores. Boise State's defense in this one, I think they really came out trying to shut that down, trying to bring the blitz. They were trying to bring the blitz versus Brandon Shager. He just was defeating it every single time, and there was really not much they could do, especially early on in this game. Every time that they blitzed him, he was finding a way to escape. One of the first plays of the game there, that second drive, 38-yard run, saved a little bit by holding, took off some of those yards. But that was kind of the lesson here. If Boise State blitzed, Brandon Shager was either going to run and defeat the blitz, or he was going to complete it. How many completions on third down and medium or long did he get away while getting absolutely pancaked on his back? This was a very impressive performance by Shager and these Hawaiian receivers. They came to play. This was obviously a game they were very, very motivated to win their Super Bowl this year, and it showed on the field. I was very impressed by Hawaii's performance overall. And that's another thing. I mean, this wasn't just Boise State necessarily underperforming per se, but it was Hawaii really stepping up. I mean, again, Boise State should have won this game by more than they did, but Hawaii really doing a great job overall of performing up to Boise State's level, especially offensively. Now, however, again, a lot of yards given up, but Boise State didn't give up the scores, and a big part of that was the huge, huge individual effort from some of these defenders by Boise State. How about we just for a moment shout out Virgin Morgan. My goodness, What an incredible game for Virgin Morgan in this matchup. 6 tackles, 2.5 sacks overall. So he's part of 3 sacks. He was all over the place. He's had a great step up in this year. I thought he has played really well this season, but this was his best game of the year. I'm not sure if that was statistically his best game, but as far as a presence out there on the defense, Virgin Morgan really stepped up in a huge way. I've been excited ever since I got to see him in person versus UCF a few years back. I've been really excited about what he can bring to the table for Boise State. But stepping up like this, the way that he did in this game defensively, that was a big reason that Hawaii didn't complete it. Not just him, but Boise State's defense overall. They had 8 sacks in this game. 8 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. Virgin Morgan had 2.5. Oladipo, he had a huge game. 2 sacks. Banks, he had a tackle for loss. McCoy, 3 passes defended. Feely had 1.5 sacks. Hassany had 1.5 sacks. Boise State's pressure up front, and not necessarily from the blitz. I thought they were defeating the blitz. It was simply the 4-man pressure that Boise State was bringing. This was the first game we've seen where Boise State was able to drop back into coverage, rush 4, and get to the quarterback. They had more sacks. Again, it seemed like, at least watching the game, that they had more sacks from the 4-man pressure than they did when they brought the blitz. They were more successful when they dropped back into coverage and brought the 4-man blitz. Now, don't learn a lot of lessons. Hawaii's offensive line is not very strong. So don't think that this is Boise State necessarily turning a page and they can just do that versus UNLV. They haven't fixed the problems in the secondary. Clearly, all these yards given up. However, Boise State's defensive line is building steam here. This defensive line, who had a lot of question marks. So the question was, who's going to step up with Hassanin? I think that's been answered pretty clearly. There are a lot of other threats on this defensive line, and they just keep getting stronger. Steege, he had some great plays. That first drive, Steege going down from the third drive, coming down from the left side, running back's going to the right side. He tracks him down in the backfield and brings him down. This was a huge game for Boise State's defensive line. And at the secondary level, yeah, they gave up some long throws. They definitely did. They couldn't stop the quarterback run at times. But then defenders were stepping up in a very, very big way. And some of them I've already mentioned. Banks, what a step up on the scene he's had the last few games. He has become such an important part of this defense. Blew up a screen there early in the game, had a pass defended, was playing very, very tight coverage. He is attacking with a lot of energy. I'm not going to say it's J.L. Skinner level, but he's starting to bring that kind of energy to his performances in this matchup. And then McCoy, what a performance from McCoy. Amari McCoy for Boise State is one of those defenders that you knew was going to be a big part of the defense this year. He was going to be kind of one of that focal points in the secondary, and he definitely was this game. 3 tackles, 3 passes defended. Overall, Boise State had 8 passes defended in this game, which is their most the entire season. This previous high was 6. This game they had 8 passes defended overall. And so while again there were moments, there were opportunities, there were short plays that went for much longer than they should have. There were deep throws allowed. There was a 28-yard touchdown. There were 3rd and longs and 2nd and 18s that were turned into 3rd and 6s and converted. There was a lot of bad moments throughout, but kind of similar to the passing game when Boise State needed to step up, when they needed to get the stop. They did. And I think one of the most impressive for me really was that final drive of the first half. Hawaii thinks they have an opportunity to bring some momentum. And again, just with the 4-man blitz, Virgin Morgan and Feely both come out and get huge sacks, which forces Hawaii to punt and end that. And Boise State then comes into the second half with that momentum. I think that was big for them defensively. And 7 points at half, 7-13. Boise State won this game 7-28, held Hawaii scoreless in the second half, and Hawaii had their opportunities. They certainly did. They had their opportunities. At times, Shager was just cutting up that defense, but then Boise State would get that big play. It's that bend but don't break. We've seen it all so far this season. It's what I said I was most impressed about by this Boise State defense, that mentality that they will take the hit. They'll take the body blow, but they're not going to take the knockout punch. They will take a couple hits. They will let you drive into their side of the field, but then they're going to get a sack. They're going to force an intentional grounding play. They're going to go out and maybe get a near interception. McCoy had a ball right in his hands. I know that he wants that ball back. Irby, first play of the game, almost had a near pick on a deflection. So Boise State's getting closer. They're getting closer and closer to kind of having those multiple pick games. They're almost there. But the point is, they'll let you drive. They'll let you have those big plays. but then they're going to force that sack. They're going to force that defended pass. They're going to go out and get a tackle for a loss against the running back, and they're going to put you into negative yards. And when you get put into negative yards, Boise State starts to sense that blood in the water. The Sharks start circling, and this defense stands up. The Boise State defense seems to always know when that moment is that they're going to flip the script. They're going to allow you to start to build that rhythm, maybe get a little bit overconfident, but then something's going to happen and the defense comes together. It melds, and in that moment, the Boise State defense is one of the best defenses in the Mountain West. In that moment, consistently overall, there's a lot of holes, but in that moment, the Boise State defense stands strong. We've seen it time and time again this season where they've allowed these long drives and nothing has come from it. And when Hawaii puts up almost 300 yards of offense, over 250 yards passing, and yet comes away with only 7 points, that's when you start to see a defensive mentality that, sure, they got a lot of things they need to work on, but the building blocks, the biggest things you want to see, the ability to force negative plays, momentum changing plays, and to stand up when you need it most, Boise State is proving that they are elite in those categories. And so if they can just put everything else together, get a little bit of nice statistical presentation, it'd be better for the fans and definitely for our heart rates. But overall, this Boise State defense doing what it needs to do to go out there and win. I'm going to give it a solid A- performance. And then looking at the special teams, this is one of those areas that I was really excited about. I mean, first coming in most of the game, I thought this is going to be an A+ performance. Jonah Dalmez is stepping out when he needs to and kicking those field goals when the Boise State offense slows down. I think he was glad for an opportunity to finally get a chance to come out and kick and start building towards that goal of making the most field goals of any kicker in the history of college football. The Boise State offense has been too efficient. He hasn't had the opportunity. But so he was out there making those kicks. Terrence Sheaves stepping up again in the absence of James Ferguson Reynolds, who we hope is continuing to recover. But he had another big game. 2 punts, both of them inside the 20. His longest punt of the game, which was definitely a 60+ yarder, he kicked it from the end zone and it ended up in like the 28-26 of the opposing team. So I mean, just distance-wise from his foot, 70+ yards. That wasn't rollout. That was because his punts don't tend to roll. They tend to bounce and then trickle out. He has a leg. Boise State knows how to recruit their punters. My goodness, Nuke the Football is proud and strong no matter who is out there. His longest punt of the day, unfortunately, is going to count statistically, but I guess not unfortunately, because he took a roughing the punter. He stood strong, took that roughing the punter, and extended the drive. And so he had an incredible game overall. Cooper Jones had a nice punt return in the shade and kind of that boundary between where the sun is still coming down on the field and you have the shade from the bleachers, and he caught a punt right in that transition, which is not easy to do, and then returned it up the sideline and very kind of not a lot of space for 10 yards. He had a nice punt return. Boise State's kick return coverage throughout this whole game, this is not something that kind of trailed off at the end, but throughout this whole game, Boise State's kick return coverage, if there's one thing you take from this game that's going to give you confidence and an energy boost, going, wow, I'm excited about that improvement, it's the kick return coverage. Boise State was shutting them down. They had one kick that they stopped and forced out at the 9-yard line. That was after one of their scores there that really kind of, again, flipped the script and forced Hawaii into kind of a negative momentum situation. Banks was the last man to drive him out, but Kaniho was right there to trip up the returner. And Boise State, it wasn't just necessarily driving them out at 10 every time, but they were stopping them short of the 20-25 on almost every single, I'm pretty sure, on every single kick return that we saw today. So that was a really strong performance overall for Boise State. However, there were some moments from pretty much the last play of the half for the special teams through into the second half that's unfortunately going to take away from their A+ grade. Learning points, right? You love to see that. You love to see great things that you can be excited about, but also bad things that don't hurt you too much, like the Oregon game, but don't hurt you too much that you can learn from. Okay, so Boise State's got something to learn from. Cooper Jones, nice return. Cooper Jones also allowed a punt to a line drive to sail past him that hit at around the 45 and trickled all the way back to close to the 20. Ended up being a 70-yard punt by Hawaii, and it went right past him. He ran out of the way. He should have gone down to get it. Then I just made a good point of, if you don't feel comfortable returning it, don't make a bad situation worse, sure. But you need to be confident. You need to be in a position to go out and get that and stop. I mean, that's punt returner. You want to be, the return is in the name, right, to return the punt, but really more than anything is to it's to stop. It's the punt stopper is their main job. Stop that punt from trickling back inside the 20. Get it on the bounce. Come up and get it so that it's not down inside the 5. And in this case, stop the ball around the 50-yard line. And the offense, which had to then come out and take a knee because they were down in the 20 with like 30 seconds left, they could have done something. Maybe you hand the ball off to Ashton Jeanty, he squirts up for 20 yards, and then you can go for a throw and a field goal. Maybe you take a deep bomb. And Boise State was throwing the ball deep in this game, which I love to see. So maybe you take a deep bomb. Boise State could have done some things if he'd come up and stopped it. So good moment, bad moment, learning from it, moving forward. And then Kaniho blocking the back there on the return in the second half. And the biggest issue overall, which was a drive extender in the second half, was Rodney Robinson offsides on the punt. Boise State does a great job. Forces a punt there on the first drive for Hawaii. First drive, they do a great job. The coverage steps up huge, building off that momentum from the end of the half. The coverage played Banks and Zion Washington both had huge pass deflections. And they're punting from 4th and 5.5. And then Rodney Robinson offsides. It allows them to get to about 1 yard short, and then they pushed it in and were able to convert and continue that drive. Obviously, that didn't go anywhere. That was a forced punt in the end. McCory had a really nice deflection pass there at the end of that drive. So Boise State recovered, but it could have been much worse. So this was a game of inches at times, and the determination was in the balance, swinging back and forth, and that could have been a shift that pushed it Hawaii's way. So unfortunately, B performance overall for Boise State. Some really negative moments there. Actually, what? I think that's just even talking about it right now, I think that's unfair. B plus, because the kick return overall, which has been Boise State's biggest issue with the special teams, that bit turned around in this game. That is something that I'm excited about. That Hawaii has some good returners. That looked like something that Boise State was fixing that they could then build on going forward into UNLV and the rest of the season. So I'm going to give it a solid B plus performance because there were some really strong moments. Obviously, Joe Gomez, Terrence Sheaves, the punt return by Jones, and then obviously the kick return overall. Some negative moments that detracted, but solid performance overall, B plus. All right, finally here before we finish, and then again my announcement about the UNLV preview. Real quick, keys to the game for Boise State: avoid the trap game. Okay, I don't feel like Boise State was this close because it was a trap game. I just think Hawaii came to play. You have the jet lag effect, and they almost got him. They did. I don't think it was a Boise State overlooking type of thing. They definitely came to play. They had their full playbook. They were going for it on 4th downs. They were throwing everything they could at this game. I don't think it was necessarily a trap game. It's just it's tough. It's tough to go out and win on the islands. Sorry, Hawaii's beaten Boise State there 3 times, and they've had some very, very close games throughout the series history, like we talked about in the preview. So I'm going to say Boise State defeated the trap game, but it wasn't like an A plus. They didn't come out and destroy them in this one. I'm going to say avoid the trap game, solid B's. They did enough to come out and get this win, and again, in a way that won't raise any eyebrows later on in the season. Silence the gun. Silence Braden Schrager and his ability to throw the ball. C plus, again, Boise State stepping up when they needed to, but he had a very successful day. Running wise, I mean, Hawaii in this game, they had 19 yards rushing at the half, and they finished the game with 15 yards rushing. So they actually lost yards between the first and second half because of the sacks. The running game, I think they ran it intentionally only like 3 or 4 times. Other than that, it was just a quarterback scramble, and Boise State able to make up for that. They did end up being able to stop the quarterback there in the second half. Simpson had a nice play on Schrager in the run, which really stopped one of the few times that the blitz actually got through to him. And so silence the gun. The gun was still firing. It just wasn't necessarily ending in the end zone, but it definitely had some long lobs out there and was still pretty successful. So I'm going to give that a C plus overall. I mean, it's not an F. It wasn't a fail. Boise State did stop it, but it had some moments, and it definitely gave Boise State a little bit of some heart palpitations. And then finally, take the passing game to the next level. The intent was there. A lot of deep throws. Boise State really kind of emphasizing the deep throw. And you know what? Some of it, again, Maddox Madsen not putting on target. Some cases, some of it just not getting the wide receivers to catch the pass. And again, when your best player, Cam Camper, is dropping balls sometimes, I mean, players can't be perfect. And so Cam Camper has a really great game overall, but he drops that one. And so overall, but for Boise State, the intent was out there to take the lid off the passing game. We didn't see Chris Marshall back in this one yet. Maybe off the break he'll come back versus UNLV. I think he'll be a huge addition. We didn't actually see Cameron Bates. I thought we might see him in this game. We've seen him in the previous ones. We didn't see him in this matchup. But we did see Boise State intentionally trying to not just make the passing game necessarily a supplement to the running game, but something that Boise State can lean on when the running game falters. And we saw that Boise State doing that pretty successfully in this matchup. And so I'm going to give that one, again, a solid B as well. Complete that deep touchdown. Don't underthrow on that first pass. Get that touchdown to Caples. I mean, this is probably an A+ overall. I mean, that would have been 2-3 more touchdowns added on and 300-something yards passing or close to it probably. So the opportunity was there, but the execution, which I think we've seen somewhat throughout the season, not necessarily on the same playing field, same level, but Boise State definitely attempting to, for sure. All right, so next game up is UNLV, and we have a bye week. And bye weeks are sad because it means we don't get to watch Boise State football, but it also means that I have an opportunity to do something a little bit extra for the channel and for previewing or reviewing the season. And like last bye week after the Oregon game, had Ron Counts on. We talked about Boise State up to that point and expectations throughout the rest of the season. Well, for the Boise State versus UNLV game, I'm going to be having my first ever, I've done a live video before, but this will be my first ever live game preview. So I'm very excited about it. Maybe a little nervous because it's going to be different. It's going to be longer than it usually is. I try to keep my game previews 30 to 45 minutes, but you are going to be able to participate. Your comments live during the process. We're going to bring them up on the screen and talk about it. And I'm bringing on a very, very passionate UNLV fan as well, who has his own podcast. And he is going to be part of that. We're going to preview this huge matchup, the biggest conference game left for both of these teams, Boise State and UNLV, potentially a preview to the Mountain West Championship game. UNLV is right in there to be, I mean, they haven't lost yet in conference. So they lose to Boise, but they go undefeated maybe the rest of the year out. This could be a rematch that we see later in the year. So this is a huge game. I want to take it seriously. I want to honor it the way that it should and also take advantage of this bye week. So I'm going to be doing a live preview of this game. I can't wait. Stay tuned for more information on that. It's going to be very exciting. There'll be stuff, of course, for both fan bases, Boise State and UNLV. I hope that both fan bases interact in the comments and we were able to have that discussion with you live. I'm very excited about that. So thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. Make sure you like, subscribe. This was a lot to break down. I'm actually pretty proud that we did it in under 45 minutes. So great job, everybody, on kind of being here all the way through to the end on a Boise State game that went super, super late, over to 1 a.m. And thanks for sticking all the way through to the end of the video here. So thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe. And as always, go Big Blue!